Okay, so we're gonna do Pesach Sheni along with Lag BaOmer for a couple of reasons. First of all, they fall out back to back, right? Pesach Sheni is Yud Daled Iyar and Lag BaOmer is Yud Ches Iyar, so they're always close to each other, not related to each other whatsoever. But I don't really have so much.
Mm.
Oh, that's confusing. I don't really have so much to say on either of them, so I thought it'd be a good idea to combine. Um, Trying to get my bearings together for a moment. All right. Um, let's do it. Pesach Sheni this year is Friday. Lag BaOmer next this year this week rather is Friday. Pesach Sheni. Yeah, what did I say? I can't even speak. Can you guys? Okay, we're muting this. Bless you guys. Um, Pesach Sheni is Friday. Lag BaOmer is Tuesday. So let's do it both together. First of all, Pesach Sheni. What is Pesach Sheni? Um, so ironically, of the two of them, right, Lag BaOmer obviously much more famous. Pesach Sheni is actually the one that is Deoraisa, that is from the Torah. What is that in a nutshell? So very quickly, everybody knows there's a chiyuv to bring the korban Pesach. Mary Bana Beis Hamikdash will do it next year. Person does not bring the korban Pesach, so they're chayiv kares. Terrible, right? One of the only performative mitzvahs, one of the only mitzvahs I say that if you don't do them, then you get kares, right? Normally kares is for isurim, right? For things you shouldn't do, right? In immoral relationships, etc. But if a person is tamei, right? So okay, so that's korban Pesach. You got to bring korban Pesach, super important. If you don't bring it, you get kares. But if a person is tamei mace, for example, God forbid if someone's relative passes away and they have to deal with the funeral, etc. So the person's tamei mace. Back in the day, you could take, the ashes of the paraduma and go through a whole tara purification process and become tahor. But if a person was tamei mace, because God forbid someone passed away that week or whatever, uh, or they worked chaver kedisha, whatever, so then they are not allowed to bring the korban pesach. Right? That's straight up in the psukim. Pesach Sheni is a month after Pesach, as you might imagine, if you've done the math, and it's an opportunity for the Jews who were Tamei Meis, right, to bring the Korban Pesach. It's eaten the same way with matzah and maror, but the other halachos of Pesach don't apply. There's no chametz, there's no right all bedika, there's no nothing. So it's just another opportunity to do the Korban Pesach. Okay, now that we don't have the Beis Hamikdash, right? Again, Sheibana Baer Miriam, what is the significance of Pesach Sheni for us? Right, aside from the fact that like people like to eat matzah or something, like or whatever. Um, so and the men get to skip tachrin and shul or whatever it is. So what's the mussar of Pesach Sheni? So Rav Melech points out that the halachos of Pesach Sheni are taught in a very curious way. Right? The Torah says in Parshas Baaloscha, right, that Hashem told Bnei Yisrael to bring the korban Pesach in the second year of the Midbar when they were in the desert. Right? And then a bunch of people approached Moshe Rabbeinu and told him that they were Tameh. Right? The Pasuk says, "Vayir anashim asher hayu tmeim lenefesh adam." There were people who were Tameh. V'lo yachlu lasos Pesach bayamahu. They weren't able to do the Korban Pesach. Vayikruvu lefnei Moshe v'lefnei Aaron bayamahu. They came to Moshe and Aaron. Vayomru anashim ha'ila, and they said to him, "Anachnu tmeim lenefesh adam." We're Tameh. Lama nigara. Why should we be any worse? Why should we get messed over? Right, Levilti akriv is korban Hashem b'moado. Well, for not to be able to bring right the korban of Hashem. Vayomer lehem Moshe, and Moshe said to them, Imdu ve'eshma ma'itzavah Hashem lachem. Stand here, and I will command you. I will tell you what Hashem commands you to do. So basically, it wasn't something that Moshe offered on his own. It's something that Bnei Israel, some of Bnei Israel, came and said, "Hey, this is not fair, or not fair, but we really want to partake. How can you work on something? Can you figure something out, right, for us to be able to bring this korban pesach as well?" Now, points out Rav Melech, normally a person who can't do a mitzvah is exempt from the mitzvah, right? If you're uncomfortable in a sukkah, you're putter from sukkah, right? There's no mitzvah to go into the sukkah if it's pouring, right? You're just a fool, right? If you're visiting your grandmother, for example, you don't have to go and do chesed for your elderly neighbor at the same time, right? Because osik b'mitzvah, putter from a mitzvah. If you're doing a mitzvah, you're putter from another mitzvah. Life circumstances sometimes dictate that a person is not obligated, right? Women are putter from mitzvah seishes man grandma. You get the idea. So here, what happened here? A bunch of people were tummy mace. They had relatives who had passed away, whatever. They weren't going to be pure to offer the korban in time, and they were putter. Tell me people can't bring the korban pesach. Not their fault. Out of their control. They didn't do anything. Okay, so they're exempt. And yet they went to ask Moshe if there's anything they can do. So points out the Chidush Harim, they must have, clearly from the psukim, they must have wanted it very badly. It must have meant the world to them to do this mitzvah, right? They said, Lama nigara, why should we be less? Why should we be diminished? Why should we get messed over? They had a shtokikos, a desire, a drive to do this mitzvah. And for us, right, to learn from that, to learn to take that aspect of Pesach Sheni, right, and apply it to our own lives. Because this ratzon to do mitzvah was such a schus that Moshe went to HaKadosh Baruch Hu immediately and said, "All right, what can we do here?" And Hashem responded, "Let them bring korban on Pesach Sheni a month later, etc." When a person has a desire for something, a true, actual, serious, deep desire for something, HaKadosh Baruch Hu enables that, fulfills that, and brings that about. Right? Again, the Gemara we quote all the time, the Gemara Makos, B'derech Shadam Roto Leilich Malichanoso, the way a person wants to go, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes him down that path. Right? Rav Melech quotes the Divrei Cheskel and points out a beautiful diuk, a beautiful example from the text in the pasuk. Pasuk says Moshe's response to the people was, Imdu ve'eshma ma'itzaveh Hashem lachem. Stand here and I will listen and I'll tell you, right, well, not that I will listen, but I will inform you, I will tell you, right, what Hashem commands you to do. Right? I'll hear what Hashem commands and I'll tell you what to do. Isn't that a little bit gaividik? Right? Great. You got that's a great question. Wait here, I'll call Hashem. I'll let you know, and as soon as he picks up. Right? Rashi even says, like, how his lashon is, how lucky is a person who could speak with a Kosh Baruch Hu at any time. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu, very, very out of character. Right? Moshe was the most humble person who ever lived. With a little bit showing off here. Like, hold on, I have Shem on speed dial. Like, it's very out of character. So Shivna Rebbe explains. The Shivna Rebbe, he explains, Shivna Rav, I don't know, I'm not sure. Okay. He explains that Moshe was relying on this aspect, this zechus, this desire, this is shtokagus to do the mitzvah, right? He was sure that their ratzon would enable a merit for Hashem to respond immediately, right? Moshe didn't say, oh, I've always got Hashem on speed dial. He said, oh, this ratzon, this desire to do a mitzvah demands that Hashem will respond immediately. So he knew it. He guaranteed that Hashem would answer right away, not because Moshe could call Hashem whenever he wanted, but because the schus of wanting to do a mitzvah and doing a holy thing so badly would generate a response. Again, Ramelech quotes a funny medrash in Vayikra Rabbah that once there was a terrible drunk, in Perikid Beis, I think, not sure why they're in there, but Perikid Beis in Vayikra Rabbah, that once there was a terrible drunk, right, and his children wanted to cure him of his alcoholism. Right, so after he got drunk, right, once they carried him away from the house and they lay him down in the local cemetery, away from all his bottles and his alcohol, and hopefully, right, as you might imagine, if after he woke up, right, that would be pretty sobering, right? You see where he was, you think about where he was, you think about where he eventually was going to end up, how he's doing with his life. There's no alcohol there, right? So he'd start sobering up, literally sobering up on life, right, and take himself seriously. So, long story short, the story goes. A bunch of the Medrash goes, not a story. The Medrash says that a bunch of wine merchants were passing by, and suddenly they heard the police approaching, and they didn't want to get caught with like illegal taxable wine. So they threw all their merch over the wall of the cemetery and ran off. So meanwhile, this guy wakes up in his drunken stupor, looks around, and sees more alcohol than he's ever seen in his life. And his kids came back the next day, and they found him drunker than ever before. What's the lesson of the Medrash? That not only does Hashem bring you to what you want if it's good, Hashem will also bring to what you want, right, if it's bad, right? Hashem bring whatever a person truly deeply wants, right? Sometimes whether it's good or bad, right? Gemara in Yuma says that a bal latame poschanoso, right? The Yuma daf lamed ches, bal latame, someone comes to become tame, wants to sin. Poschenlo, Hashem opens up that possibility for him. And Bala Taher, if someone wants to become purified, then Misayanoso, then Hashem helps him. Right now, we've pointed out that there's a difference between Poschenlo, that Hashem opens up the possibility for a person to sin, and Misayanoso, that Hashem helps a person to become Tahor. But still, again, the point for us is that whatever a person wants, Hashem will kind of lead you in that direction. So the question of Pesach Sheni nowadays, without the Beis HaMikdash, maybe but a Beis HaMikdash by Friday, maybe we'll get it. I don't know. But if it's not, the question of Pesach Sheni is, what do you want? Right? What do you truly, deeply, honestly want? Right? Ask yourself that question. Right? And just realize that whatever you actually want, that's the direction HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take you in. Right? When you ask yourself that question of what do I want? Well, there are two possibilities, right? If you're happy with the answer, so then great. And start thinking about making choices that will help you along that path. If you're not happy with the answer, right, and you have to take it's not always easy to take a real, true, deep dive inside what you actually want. And so then you have to think about that, right? And then you have to deal with that accordingly, right? What do you want in life? If you're moving through life and not thinking about what you want, well, that's one of the traps of the Yetzer Hara, right? You guys get back to Chutz La'aretz and you're just going through the college thing, and you go through the dating thing, and you go through the marriage thing, and you go through the raising kids thing, and if you don't throw out the anchor once in a while to think about where am I going, right? So then you just get swallowed up with the flow and direction of life because it is a heavy current, right? Use Pesach Sheni to reanalyze what you want in life, think about what you want, and if necessary, right, readjust accordingly. Okay, that's a word about Pesach Sheni. Let's do a little bit about Lag BaOmer. Now, full disclaimer, if you're listening to this because you saw the title was Lag BaOmer and you thought it'd be some great, deep, mystical, Sephardi, Kabbalistic, you've come to the wrong place. Okay, this is a difficult holiday for us Ashkenazi Litvaks.
Right, Rabbi.
Very, what happened? What's that? No, what?
I'm
Not
kidding.
so. Well, I can't hear you guys. Sorry, say again.
I said I'm just gonna leave the Zoom now, but I was just joking.
Oh yeah, seriously, legit.
Wait,
Very
Rabbi, I
difficult.
have a question though.
Yeah, sure. What's up?
Okay, wait. So I don't know if this is real and I don't know whatever, but when I was growing up, for some reason my older brother always said that Sfardim don't do it on the what is it, the 33rd? That's Lag BaOmer. We celebrate on the 34th.
Yeah, that's
Is that
true.
no, that is a
What?
thing?
Yeah, that's true. Shulchan
Oh,
Aruch writes that Ashkenazim can shave on the 33rd, but Sephardim wait till the 34th to
Oh, to
shave because they
change.
hold that you need 33 full days. That's correct.
Oh, but could we still listen to music?
Yeah, music is mutter the night of Lag BaOmer. For
Uh,
some reason, I still haven't gotten a good reason why that they split shaving and music, but music is mutter on the night of the 33rd already. Yeah,
okay, thank
yeah,
you.
very good.
I have a question.
Yeah, shoot.
Is the night like sunset or is it when you see three stars?
Uh, I don't know. For
Oh,
this, mm,
for most things.
well, it depends. For Shabbos, that's already D'oraisas. This is more of a minhag. I'm not sure it really matters. That's the truth.
Okay.
It's a minhag, right? For Shabbos, yeah, it's Shkia, and that's clear.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Wait a few minutes, I guess. If you, if you, but if you're already at a like Bomer party, it's fine. It's okay. Um, all right. Anyway, long story short, so if you leave through, for example, Rav Melech stuff, so he talks about a lot about the spiritual power of Rabbi Shimon, the holiness of the Kabbalah, the Arizal, the light that Rabbi Shimon gives off, and all the mystical stuff. He tells a lot of stories about Nisim that happened in Meron, etc., and Rabbi Kiva's Tzion of Chule. Not my speed. Not my speed. But we are going to try and Ashkenazi Litvak the thing. Those are verbs. We're going to try and turn this into something that we can learn lessons from, at least in my point of view. So first of all, there are it's again, it's not a Torah holiday whatsoever. There are several, not seven. There's several reasons for the Chag. First of all, the most famous, I think, is Rabbi Kiva's Talmidim stop dying. The language in the Gemara in Yevamos and Samach Beis, where it tells the whole story about that, right, Rabbi Kiva's Talmidim, so it actually says that they died from Pesach until Shavuos, but the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishabura and basically everybody assumes that they stopped dying either on Lag BaOmer or the 34th, depending on which version you like. That's A. B, it's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's Yartzeit, Rashbi, and the revealing, we celebrate the revealing of the secrets of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the Kabbalah, like the actual Kabbalah, not like Kabbalah, but the actual Kabbalah and the Holy Torah and the secrets of the Torah. Number three is brought down that this is the day that Rabbi Kiva set up his five Talmidim, right? Again, from that story in Yevamos and Daf Samach Beis, right? Rabbi Kiva's Talmidim all died, V'hayolam Shamim, and the whole world was desolate. And then Rabbi Kiva went and set up five more Talmidim. One of them, by the way, was Rabbi Shimon, which we'll get to in a second. But anyway, that was the day, like Bomer was the day that Rabbi Kiva set out and started teaching Torah to his five Talmidim. And then I saw it in a sefer called Vayomer Eliyahu from Rav Eliyahu Etia, who is a Sephardi Rav up here in Har Nof, who lives on HaKablan. So I saw that the Chasam Sofer apparently brings the medrash that this was the first, completely not relevant to anything, that this was the first day that the mun fell in the desert. Right, he writes that the Bnei Israel ate matzah for 30 days. That's what they took out. That Seidah Asher Sulahem Laderech, right? That I think the pasuk says something to that effect. That lasted them 30 days. They had 3 days without food, and then they had the mun. Well, 33 days after they left Mitzrayim, guess what? That's Lag BaOmer. So okay, fascinating. But that's again also just fascinating quickly, as which again very Ashki Litvak, right? Rav Etia, which ironically is a Sephardi Kabbalist, but fantastic Talmid Chacham. He says all those are actually related to Limud Torah, right? If we're leading up to Shavuos, and Shavuos is in a couple of weeks, right? So these are all related to Limud Torah. Obviously, Rabbi Kiva's Talmidim stopped dying. Obviously, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's yard site, Torah Shebal Peh, the secrets of the Kabbalah. That obviously, the day Rabbi Kiva set up his five Talmidim, obviously, and that's continued the Masorah. What's with the man? So he says that the man, right? The Mechilta says in Mishalach is that the reason that Akash Baruch Hu, this is not really the reason, but the Mechilta, the Medrash says that a deeper reason why Hashem dragged Bnei Israel in the desert for 40 years was that if Hashem would have taken them to Eretz Yisrael immediately, Bnei Israel would have to get to work, working the land and making food and whatever for many hours, and they wouldn't have any time to study Torah. So Hashem gave them their parnasa for 40 years in the desert so they could study Torah, and therefore, again, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai has a statement elsewhere that lo nitna Torah lidrosh el lo chayaman, that the Torah was given to darshan out to the people who eat the man. Okay, that's the Gemara elsewhere, which you don't talk about. Long story short, all four of those are related to the Limud Torah preparation for Shavuos. But okay, let's go through some other stuff. Background, first of all, in terms of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, we think of him as like Meron, Kabbalah, etc. Rabbi Shimon appears all over Shas, all over the Gemara. Anytime the Gemara or the Mishnah says Rabbi Shimon, that's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right? Not only by like Bomer stories, but like Hilchos Shabbos and Hilchos Korbanos and Hilchos Menachos and Hilchos Gittin and Kiddushin and all over the place, all over the place. The Gemara says in Gittin and Daf Samach Zayin, right, that Rabbi Shimon said to his students that Banai, my sons, Shanu Midosai, right, copy my ways, my midos. Shemidosai trumos mitrumos midosav shel Rabbi Akiva, because my midos is a truma, which is 1/50th of a 1/50th of the midos of Rabbi Akiva. And Rashi explains basically it's the solas anikia shel Torah's Rabbi Akiva. It's the fine flour, meaning Rabbi Shimon took Rabbi Akiva's Torah. Again, Rabbi Akiva was the one disseminating the Masorah, and Rabbi Shimon sifted it out, and all you had left was the fine flour. Right? Rabbi Shimon basically got the Masorah to a very powerful way, and the Yerushalmi and Sanhedrin. Again, I saw in the Sefer of Baer Miriam, the Yerushalmi and Sanhedrin says that Rabbi Akiva said about Rashi Bar Yochai, "Dayecha shani uborecha makirin kochacha." It's enough that I and your Creator, meaning Hashem, recognize your strength. Right? That Rashbi was up there. Rashbi was a big Talmid Chacham, not aside from all the Kabbalistic stuff. The Sorim do say, to just one more word about the Kabbalistic stuff, that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had Moshe's neshama in it. What does that mean? I don't know. Again, Rabbi Melech goes on, the Sivas Shalom goes on. It's not my stuff. I apologize. If you're into that stuff, I'm sure you can find Shurim about it. The Gemara in Shabbos and Daf Kuf Lamed Ches, right, says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Omar says, Chas v'shalom shetishtachach Torah miYisrael. Chas v'shalom that the Torah should be lost from Am Yisrael. Again, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was one of the 5 people instrumental in making sure the Torah would not be lost. He quotes Pasuk, "Shneimar kilo tishkach mipi zaro." The Torah will not be forgotten from your children. That's a Barry Weber song, if you've ever heard it. Okay, the Gemara in Sukkah Daf Mem Hey, right, it says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says Yochel ani liftor es kol olam kulo min adin. We'll get back to this in a second. But Rabbi Shimon says that I am good enough to pater everyone, to excuse everyone in the entire world from judgment. And the Yerushalmi and Brachos says that all of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's days there were no rainbows. Right? Rainbows indicate that Hashem, wants to destroy the world, but he won't because he's being merciful. Okay, the Gemara in Shabbos and Dav Lamed Gimel, which is Lag. Yeah, like Bomer, ironically, not or unironically, talks about the entire story of how Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai got into the cave and what happened. That we should probably go over that for a minute, just to kind of recap it, and then we'll try and learn some lessons. So again, there are no coincidences. It's not a Lamed Gimel Mabeis on Shabbos. So the Gemara basically tells that whole story. You guys are familiar with it, ish, sort of, kind of, maybe. Basically, there was a whole debate between some of the students of some of the Tanaim over there as to whether the Romans were doing good things. And where is it? Trying to find it. Okay, one second. Yeah. Rabbi Yehuda said, "How beautiful are the ways of this nation, i.e. the Romans. Tiknu shvakim, they made marketplaces, they made gates, not gates, they made bridges, they made bathhouses." So that's what Rabbi Yehuda said, that the Romans are great. Rabbi Yossi said shasak. He didn't say anything. He was like, And Nana Rashbi, then Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, "Get out of here. All they did was for themselves." Again, I'm just translating. They did marketplaces to put zonas there, to put the prostitutes. They have, I'm sorry, that was the marketplaces. They have bathhouses just to beautify themselves. They have gates just to take taxes. So there was a guy who was sitting there. His name was Yehuda ben Gerim, and he told the Romans, And he said, Yehuda is praising you. Rabbi Yossi didn't say anything, and Rabbi Shimon is telling you, terrible things. And so basically, they decreed that Rabbi Shimon should be killed. So Rabbi Shimon and his son ran away from the base medrash and hid in the base medrash, right? And he was very nervous, right? All he ate was a little bit from his wife, and then he got nervous that this is one of the Gemaras that say Nashon Taitan Kalos. He got nervous that his wife would be tortured or whatever, and she would give it up. So he ran and hid in a cave, right? That's Rabbi Shimon. I don't know if you've heard that. That's the cave. Good. And he was there for 13 years, right? He had a miracle that there was a carob tree and a little bit of water. And basically he sat there in the sand, right? Up buried in the sand for 13 years. They were all learning the Torah. This is when Rabbi Shimon was supposedly Rabbi Shimon was granted tremendous insight into the secrets of the Torah. Okay. After they came out. Then they okay, right, okay, if I'm just skipping some of the details, right? They came out and they saw people working the ground, and they said, "Oh, manichin chaye olam v'oskim b'chaye yishar." They got Rabbi Shimon got so upset. People are putting aside chaye olam, right, long-lasting life, i.e., life in the next world, like learning Torah, and dealing with chaye yishar, dealing with things from this world, like by working and making food and working the ground, etc. And so, kol makom shenosim meneim miyad nisraf, and they kept on burning up the world, right? Every time place they looked, they started catching on fire. And Yasa Baskal Amra, the Baskal came out and said, "They charev olami itzasim. What, you guys came out of the cave just to destroy my world? Get out of here!" And then they went back into the cave another 12 months, right? And then and they said that from here they learned that the judgment of Rishoyim and Gehenna is 12 months. Okay, again without all the details in the Gemara, we're not going to go through all these little. There's a lot here, but just to finish the story, Baskal came out and said, "All right, guys, get out of here. Time to go." Then they came out and let's say, okay, fine. They saw a guy running with the two, I guess it was flowers or something, and they been a shmashos on Shabbos. They said, "What are you doing it for?" He said, "It's for kavod Shabbos, right? One for kavod, one for oneg, one for zachar, one for shamar rather." But he said, "Oh, kama chaviv mitzvos al Yisrael." He saw Rabbi Shimon said, "Oh, great, the Jews are doing mitzvos." Amazing, right? So then obviously he felt much better. And then finally, just to finish off the story, Pinchas ben Yair heard, right? His son-in-law came and heard that he said that he was out, but he said he came to see him. He said, "Oh my gosh, you guys are so injured. So your skin, you've been in sand for 13 years, right? Your skin is all blotched and injured, right?" Oh, he felt terrible and started crying. And Rabbi Shimon said, "Nah, get out of here. It's totally fine. Baruch Hashem, right? That I was zocha. Okay, we'll okay, fine. Anyway, he answered all these questions. V'chuli v'chuli. That's basically the Gemara over there. Okay, so now let's with that stuff. Let's learn some lessons. So first of all, even if we can't understand all of the Torah Sasod and all the secrets of Rabbi Shimon and the Kabbalah, etc., you can learn many lessons, right, from just this story alone and other stories involved. First of all, there's always a plan, right? Romans chasing after him, 13 years a cave, right? 12 months, another 12 months. It's stuck in, he's eating carrots, he's eating water, skin is all blotched, wrecked from the sand. It sounds terrible. On the run for his life. In the end, right, that's where Rabbi Shimon was zocha to learn the Torah Sasod, to write the Kabbalah, to share all the deep Torah, right, and the Siva Shalom, right, the rights of the Arizal's Torah and the Baal Shem Tov's Torah and Rabbi Nachman's Torah and all the commentaries to Rashbi's Torah. All of that came from that story, right? We don't always see the results when we are chas v'shalom in a bad way or struggling with stuff. Sometimes things look bleak, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always orchestrating things right behind the scenes. For example, the Ramban writes in Shmooze in Perek Daled that when by the sneh, when Moshe is by the sneh, that the Ramban writes that Hashem could have healed Moshe from his speech impediment. Right? Moshe complains, "I have a speech impediment," but Hashem doesn't heal him. So the Ramban says, first of all, Moshe never davened for it. The Ramban says because maybe Moshe thought it'd be a good excuse not to take out Bnei Israel, which tells you something amazing about tefillah, by the way, right? That Hashem didn't give it to him because he didn't daven. Okay, but so Hashem just instead left the speech impediment and gave Moshe the proper words when it was necessary. But second of all, but important for us, right? Hashem says to Moshe, "Misam pel la'adam," who gave a mouth to people, right? Who gave speech to people? I do, right? Hashem does, not me. Hashem does, right? Hashem made this decision, right? He could have removed Moshe's speech impediment. The Ramban suggests, why didn't he? Because Hashem wanted it to be an even greater miracle, that a guy with a speech impediment took this nation, right, that was slaves, and he contended with the ruler of the world, basically, and took Bnei Israel out of Mitzrayim. It's an even bigger miracle, because it's some guy who couldn't talk. right? So sometimes our struggles and our limitations are by design, right? And that's so that the accomplishment that you do, that you fulfill, that you complete, or the miracle that happens to you, right, is even greater. Okay, that's one lesson. Nasiva Shalom points out that apparently there's great value, right, in trying to remove physical needs and pleasures from ourselves. Right? Obviously, we can't relate to this type of tsar, this type of pain, but Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai only ate carobs in water for 13 years. He was covered in sand the entire time, similar to Moshe Rabbeinu, by the way. You mentioned that Rashbi and Moshe maybe have had the same neshama, whatever that means. Moshe also didn't eat or drink for 40 days on the Har Sinai. It was given, right, the entire Torah, right, deep secrets of the Torah. So, okay, but Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right, basically didn't eat and didn't have any physical pleasures for a very long time. Now, obviously, we can't relate to that, and we all shouldn't do that. Nobody do that, okay? But there is real value, right, in not needing to eat or drink or indulge our physical desires to the 100th degree. Right? Obviously, you need to eat and drink. Don't clip that and put that on like, YouTube or whatever. Right? Obviously, we need to eat and drink, okay? But no one's telling you to be a monk, yeah? But we all know that character traits like gluttony and lust and insatiability and materialism, right, are not conducive to a Torah lifestyle. There's a certain mesiras nefesh, right, that a person has to do, right, to wean themselves off of certain physical desires, right, that normally drive us and indicate, what we should do in a certain day. Reish Lakish tells us in Shabbos and Daf Pei Gimel and Brachos and Daf Samach Gimel, right, that Ein HaTorah Miskayemes Elo Misha Memis Atzmo Aleh, right, the Torah is only fulfilled through someone who kills themselves for it, literally. And while obviously you shouldn't do that, right? That's not what it, but a person has to be mussar nefesh, right? Not literally, but figuratively. You have to give up some of your life, some of your physical pleasures, right? For the sake of improving your neshama and your avodas Hashem, right? For boys, that means mussar nefesh over a piece of Gemara, right? For girls, that means giving up some other things in life, right? It's not easy to live a frum life, right? There's a lot of vacation and luxury that yeshiva tuition can buy, right? If you're spending 40 grand, right, for your kid to go to SEM, and yes, it's now 40 grand with the shekel being so low. Thank God you guys are done already. But if you're spending 40 grand for your kid to go to SEM or yeshiva, right, and I've been told that some high schools are higher, as an aside, but okay, that's mesiras nefesh, right? You're not sitting in a cave for 13 years, okay, but there's real mesiras nefesh for ruchnius, and it's not necessarily easy. Okay, fine. What else can we learn from other Rabbi Shimon stories? So Rav Chaim Shmulevitz and Silas Musar, right, has a couple of really beautiful insights into that Gemara in Yevamos Daf Samach Beis, which tells the whole story about Rabbi Kiva's Talmidim and dying and etc. So, as you know, Rabbi Kiva's Talmidim didn't treat each other with kavod, didn't care about the kavod of Torah of their friends, but Rabbi Kiva's new Talmidim did. And that had the ability to keep the Torah going. Right? The Medrash says in Koheles Rabbah and Yud Aleph Vav, right, that Rabbi Kiva said to his 5 new Talmidim that his first Talmidim, i.e., the 24,000 that died because shahaya einehem tzara b'Torah zelazeh, because their eyes were tsar, their eyes were enemies. Tzara, right? Tsar is someone who is a direct oyev or an adversary, right? Torah against each other. You guys should not be like that. And so, what does that mean? Einehem tzara. So you find this phrase, right, a bunch of places. You find ayin ra in Pirkei Avos, but you have a very similar phrase in a Gemara above Metzion Daf Pei Zayin, which is actually a hilarious context, which has nothing to do with this. The Gemara there says that when Avram had guests, right, had the 3 angels as his guests, he ran to Sarah and said, "Shloshim kemach solas lushi vasiu gos." Right, Sarah, go make cake. Go make bread or whatever it is. But he uses 2 conflicting words that you probably don't realize are conflicting. If you're learning Daf Yomi and Menachos, you'll realize that, but you guys are not, and that's fine. The word kemach means regular flour, and soles means very fine flour, meaning very ground up and very fine. So he said, give me kemach soles, give me flour and fine flour. That's a contradiction. Like, it's one or the other, right? What should the bread have been made of? So the Gemara answers that Avram was suggested fine flour, Sarah suggested regular flour, and Rabbi Yitzchak, well, Gemara doesn't actually say that. The Gemara just simply says that that's the implication that we learn. But Rabbi Yitzchak basically says that mikan sha'isha tzara eineha ba'orchim yoter min ish. From here, we see that a woman is tzara eineha, is a little bit stingier, a little bit of an antagonistic look in her eye about guests more than a man. That's what the Gemara says. Ben Yoyada says it was a positive, right? I said the implication poorly from the Gemara, but that Avram knew Sarah was super genuine, It's super genuine and super generous with her guests. So he suggested regular flour to give her the opportunity to one-up him, right? To insist that it be made from the best, finest flour to set an example for other women who are usually not as generous. Okay, but that's a phrase. That's just hilarious context. But so the Talmidim were antagonistic towards each other, looked down upon, snide, snobby, not as magnanimous as they should have been to others people of Torah. Okay, fine. Says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, um, yeah, and that's why they were punished, right? That there were 24,000 were punished. They were not concerned with their friends Hatzlacha and Ruchnias. They were only concerned with their own Chidushei Torah, their own Hatzlacha and spirituality, and not anyone else's. So perhaps that's also something that we celebrate on Lag BaOmer, right? That Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Huda and all the five Talmidim stopped doing that. Right? They were able to recognize other people's strengths. They emphasized Benam Lachavero, right? And the notion that our fellow Jews are worthy of our attention and praise and appreciation, right? Instead of, just complaining about the Jews like we do all the time, right? We complain about, I've heard people say, oh, I went on vacation. How was it? Oh, it was so nice. There were no Jews there. Right? That's terrible. That's terrible. People say that all the time. I've heard that all the time. Anyway, so they were not complaining about their friends. They were encouraging their friends. They were helping each other, right, grow. And we're commemorating, and like Ba'omer, we have an opportunity to rededicate ourselves, right, to our friends' Hatzlacha in Yiras Shamayim, right? Schlep your friend to a shir or a Shabbos or a Chesed event. Set up a chavrusa. Give some of your time, right, to help someone else's avodas Hashem, even though that doesn't necessarily improve your own. And if you do that, so you will actually see your own avodas Hashem improve. There's a fascinating thing that you notice if you say Birchas HaTorah in the morning. If you say Birchas HaTorah in the morning, and then you say the things that you say afterwards, right? There's Yirech Hashem Yishmerecha, there's Birkas Kohanim, which we say right after Birkas HaTorah, and then we say a Mishnah that Elu Dvarim She'en Lehem Shur, right? These are the things that have no limit, okay, etc. Then, right afterwards in the Siddur, at least the Ashkenazi Siddur, I don't know, I'm not sure if the Sfardim have it, but okay, I think they do. Elu Dvarim She'adam Ochel Perutem B'Olam Hazeh V'Keren Kayemet L'Olam Haba. We say these are things that people eat the fruits of in this world, meaning we get, right, it benefits us in this world, but the main reward is in the next world. Okay? These are the things where you benefit in this world, but you mainly benefit in the next world. Fascinating. Pay attention to these examples. Kibbud Avim, Gemilas Chasadim, Chesed. Okay, I'm going to skip one just because I'm trying to put a point. Hachnasas Orchim, Biker Cholim, Hachnasas Kala, which means helping someone get married. Levayas Hames, going to a funeral. Okay, Havas Shalom Ben Adam Lachavero, bringing two people peaceful. What are you noticing about these examples? All of these examples, again, I skipped a couple just to prove a point. All of these examples are things that you are doing for other people. All of them. Almost all of them. Haknasas Orchem, Biker Cholim, Kibbud Avim, Gemilas Chasadim, Haknasas Kala, Levayas Hames, Havas Shalom Ben Adam Lachavero. All those things are for other people. And yet these are examples that you benefit from in this world, and the main reward is in the next world, which is fascinating because that's the idea that when you help other people, right, you really are actually helping, right, yourself. And so that's the idea on Lag BaOmer, that we can kind of help other people with their avodas Hashem and pay attention to other people's avodas Hashem, and thereby build ourselves. One more, right, kind of cute. I say it's cute. Chaim Shmulevitz brings it down, so it's probably not cute. It's probably serious. But another proof that Lag BaOmer is the time we can work on Achdus is that, again, when the Gemara, and we mentioned before on Sukkos on Daf Memhei, right, said that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says Yochel Ani Liftor is called Olam Kulam and Adin. Right, Rabbi Rashbi said that he could pater the entire world, right, with his merits, could get everybody out of a judgment. So the Gemara actually doesn't actually stop there. It says, right, that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said this, and then he says, right, Ilmali Elazar b'ni imi, if I had my son Elazar with me, then I could pater everybody, I could get everybody out of judgment, miyom shenivra ha'olam v'ad achshav, until the world was created, from the day the world was created up until now. Yotam ben Uzziyahu imanu, and if I had Yotam ben Uzziyahu with us also, then I could do it miyom shenivra olam ad sofo. The three of us could get everybody out of judgment from the day the world was created until the end of it. Meaning that all these people were tremendous, great tzaddikim. Points out Rosh Chaim Shmulevitz, right, that he uses the word imi and imanu. If I had these people with me together, right, then our spiritual power, right, could kind of merit and get us all out of judgment for forever and evermore. It says the achdus, right, the together, right, ki ish echad b'lev echad, even though presumably they're on different levels, and presumably Rashbi was a bit higher than his son, still together, right, Am Yisrael coming together, that can accomplish tremendous spiritual heights. So Mitzvah Shem, on this Lag BaOmer, we'll be zocha to lift ourselves up, we'll be able to zocha to lift our friends up, right, and we'll merit the Binyan Beis Hamikdash, right, so you guys can all get on a flight or figure out how to get back to this country through Egypt or whatever. Dudes, it's been real. Good to see you guys.